Greetings, everyone. This is Calvin Ward, and I want to welcome you to the first episode of the Professional LinkedIn series that I will be doing, bringing professionals on some powerful topics to discuss. So I call it Professional Development Live. So we'll be doing this and streaming this on LinkedIn. Today, we're streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So if you're tuned in, please invite a guest. What I would like for you guys to do is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So when I go live, you will get this information. You will know when we go live with this series. If you know of educators, experts, scientists, people who are professionals in their field that have something to say, something to add value to the public and to the professional community, please get in contact with me. I would love to see them, and I would love to have them on the show. And so what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to take this real quick, tiny break. We're going to come back, and then we're going to speak with our guest on tonight, social worker, chaplain, and educator Renita Davis, hailing from Chicago, Illinois. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned. Awesome. Renita, Miss Davis, how are you on this evening?
I am peachy. I'm wonderful. How are you this evening?
I am doing excellent. I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show. You are number one. It's an honor to have you. You are number one. So you're the first professional episode. You're the first episode going live on LinkedIn. I'm excited about that. I always like to add value. And I'm so glad, I have you here today. You have an extensive background. People can see, your education. I'm gonna have you talk to us about that. But can you talk to us tonight about your personal background? Who is Renita? Where did you grow up?
Well, I am a native of Illinois. My whole life I've been here. Matter of fact, I'm still living here. I'm trying to get out. My husband's retired now, so I'm working on that. But I've been a native of Illinois for all my life, pretty much, between Waukegan, North Chicago, Zion. I know the neighborhoods. I've lived them. Right now, I have two children. Both of them are grown. My son just turned 23 in August, so I have no more babies. It's just me and my husband right now. And I'm a coordinator of student services in the Zion, Illinois district. I worked as a social worker with DCFS, alternative schools. I realized that social work was my passion. And so I continued in that, and I decided that, I wanted to affect more people. So with that, I then sought a degree in educational leadership so that I would be able to affect more people. I have my own LLC. It is International Community Hope Project. It is a consulting wellness program organization. I'm working on getting that up and rolling. I've had the LLC since 2017. And now I'm just really looking to start adding pieces to it. Part of my background, I'm a certified parent counselor or consultant. I can teach parenting classes. I'm also an anger management trainer, so I can do that too. There's so much. You're just gonna have to check me out on LinkedIn because I can't remember everything.
Well, that's what it's there for, like the LinkedIn profiles. I love the LinkedIn profiles because getting out of the military. For people that don't know, I am a military veteran, but getting out of the military, got an opportunity to sit and talk with one of the representatives from LinkedIn. And so that's when I learned about the power of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is so powerful. So for those of you who are tuned in, please connect with Renita on LinkedIn. And maybe, Renita, you can text me your LinkedIn. If you have it, you can text it to me. What I'm going to do is just put a message at the bottom letting people know, look, you connect with Renita. So you mentioned social work. I'm going to ask you about that. You said you had a passion for social work. I'm going to ask you to talk to me a little bit about that. What was your passion for social work?
Well, it started with my firstborn. And I realized that being a new parent, I probably knew nothing about raising a child. So I went back to school to learn about child development. I first started wanting to be a psychologist, so I took psychology classes and learned about child development.
Mhm.
And I realized that part of that, um, I people were easily people easily talked to me. They would, I just had that knack for people to come, and they would just,
Just
you
spill
know
their guts and
yeah, they
just
would just
tell you
regurgitate
stuff.
everything, and they would feel comfortable. And so my concern, my question about why people do the things that they do, my psychology turned into really the social work aspect of it. Um, so I started as a social worker.
Okay.
My very first background, of course, is accounting. I have a degree in accounting from Grambling State University. And so, as an HBCUer, giving back to the community is something that I've always wanted to do. So,
Awesome.
being in
Awesome.
that social work field, I've worked in the area. I am so I mean that's pretty much it. And I realize this is my passion, this is my love. As I grow in this field, I
Mhm.
realize how many things and how many avenues that social work just affects. So the social and emotional aspect of a community, of
Right.
just an individual, it is just so vast that knowing those tools, even as a person, just
Mhm.
being able to, tune in and understand that everybody has a story. And with
Right.
those stories, it, why they behave the way they are, it's because of their story. So we have to be cognizant of that story. So I've always been that person to want to listen to their stories. Okay.
Awesome. And that's where their passion was, because people are
Yeah.
easy. Oh, that's awesome. You said people, you found out that people talk to you easy. People just tell you their stories. And that's
Yeah.
a tribute. I'm not a tribute. That's an attribute. I'll have people come to me. And sometimes you ask, why are they telling me all of this? But it's an
Mhm.
honor to have people. I think it's awesome. And I think you have the right feel, because it's an honor and a privilege when people come and they feel safe enough with you to share their story, right? So you
Right.
said the passion for social work. How about the educational side? So you have a master's in social work, a background in accounting, but you also recently, whoop whoop, congratulations, high five, a virtual high five. Can we get that virtual high five going on? That's what I'm talking about. You just finished your master's of education. Can you tell us a little bit of, you already have a degree in accounting, you already have a master's in social work, you've already been in your field. Can you please tell people who are watching this, why did you feel, what made you want to go and get another credential, and not just another credential, Renita? You went and got another master's degree. What made you go at this point in your life and say, I'm going to get another credential, but better yet, I'm going to get another master's degree, and not a doctoral degree because you already had a master's? You chose to augment yourself with another master's degree. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, the reason I did that was kind of twofold. um, I realized that where I was at because I'm a school social worker, okay, and working in the school system, I was able to meet the needs of a small sect of students in the building that where I worked. I understood that the gift that I had and the ability that I had, and I would even tell people, I'm good. So I want to reach more people. Um,
Right.
I told the Lord, I said, God, when I grow up, I want to be able to go out and speak and teach other people how to handle our babies, because
Mm.
I have been doing this for about 18 years now. And I'm like, I need to tell people what I know. And so I said, God, when I grow up, this is what I want to do. And all of a sudden, these opportunities started to come my way.
Awesome.
And I thought that I was going to start being on kind of like the speaking circuit. Okay. So I was going to be able to be in a vein where I could, for lack of better words, preach to the teachers. okay, and teach them these things. And I got a curveball
Oh, wow.
because I saw this opportunity to get my master's. And when I got the master's, I realized that it would take me to the district levels because right now I'm just in the one school building. From there, I became an instructional coach. And after that, I realized I need to be in the district level. So in order to be in the district level, I had to get a admin license. So that's where the master's in education came in. So now I have an opportunity to not only reach one school. My position when I first started, I was the coordinator for all 7 buildings that we had. That's a lot.
Wow, that's a
And
lot.
I had so many ideas and so many plans. And, God saw fit to keep me sane in all of this.
Can
But
we talk
also,
about that? I have to ask you about that. You said 7 buildings because I want people to get a scope. How many, you are a coordinator, so how many people did you have to work with? You said 7 buildings, so give people, an idea of how many people were you coordinating with, whether they were employees, co-workers, colleagues, and students. So what was the scope of that position as a coordinator? And the reason I'm asking, Renita, because
oh
sometimes
gosh.
we say stuff, and I want people to really get an idea of the level of, what I'm saying, of experience that you have. Because sometimes we say stuff and people don't know that, hold up, that means this right here. It's
Right,
not just this.
right.
So, what was the scope of that position?
Okay, so the scope of my position is this. When I started, and I always take it as this is my running joke, personal joke for me. I started on April Fool's Day, April 1st. Woke up April 1st of the year and had a new job as the coordinator. And this was during COVID.
Ah,
Okay. So I was working from home, being a coordinator for 7 buildings, and all of a sudden I get this influx of of um of people seeking my assistance. So I'm going through books and everything. But the scope of it is there are each building that I was working in, they were pre-K. There were some buildings that were pre-K through 2.
mhm.
There were some buildings that were um, pre-K through 5th grade. And then we had a middle school. We then made an adjustment, but overall, you're talking about over 100 or so adults,
Wow, wow,
and you're talking about thousands, like
right, right.
2,000, maybe 15,000, somewhere up in there, um, students that I have the honor to serve.
Awesome.
I never say oversee, I never say instruct, I never say supervise, but I have an honor to serve. And so my role is to serve each and every one of those individuals to the best of my ability
Oh, wow, awesome.
in order so they can do their job. Because if I can't give them what they need to do their job, then their job is not going to be effective, and then that then affects our children, and that then affects our community. So I took the position very I didn't take it lightly.
Right.
Okay. So that was the scope of the beginning. This year there's been some changes, and our superintendent wanted to have um, building level or grade level coordinators. So I went back to my first love, which is the school that I started in Zion, which was the middle school. So now I'm the coordinator of just 2 buildings, but all of the plans and the ideas that I had in the very beginning on April Fool's Day, I can now, I have an opportunity to actually make those things happen. I'm putting out those ideas, and I'm talking to my director, and I'm telling him, I'm like, this is my plan. And I'm watching it actually blossom. So even though I don't have the honor of, and I still do, I take that back, I still have the honor of serving everybody in the district, because if somebody asks me to do something, if I have it within my power, I'm going to make it happen. Okay. So I now have the honor of serving the middle school portion of our district. That means the families, that means the community, that means the adults that I work with closely. And I don't feel like something was taken from me. I feel like I now have an opportunity to expand even more because now I can be more focused on a certain population.
Right, and it allows you, okay, you're more focused on a certain population, which
Yes.
allows you to
Yes.
zoom in and be more specified when you could take all your skill set, take all your skill sets, take all your knowledge, information, and experience, and focus it in one direction. And I think that's important too, Renita. So since you said,
Right.
I want to ask you this so you can speak to someone who may watch this. How important do you think it is when you are a professional, or let's say in your case, let's say educator, because the educator may watch this, how important is it to make sure that you're honing in on your skills, that you are not, a jack of all trades and a master of none?
Of
How,
none.
yeah, how hard is it? Because, a lot of us as professionals, we have a lot of different skills. I know, being a military veteran of 20 years, I tried to make sure in the middle of my career that I focus all of my degrees and certifications in one area. So when I look back, I can say, okay, I can go in this area. I got a couple of options, but everything lines up. But some people have so many skill sets, they don't ever focus. And then they may get in a job where the job pulls them in multiple directions, and they never
Right.
have the opportunity to focus in an area like you just said. You have opportunity to focus. So can you speak to us and tell us how important is it for us to, at whatever stage in life, to say, look at your skill. I need to look at my skill set, and I need to find out what area I need to hone in on so that I can focus.
I think for when you're talking about focus and when you're talking about honing in on something, you have to start with a passion
I
because
want to say that.
anything that you do,
That's
if you don't have a passion for it, it's going to be tedious work. When I was getting my master's in social work, I enjoyed it so much. Writing papers was nothing. I hate writing papers. But I could get up and I could pop out a paper just like that when
Look,
it came to educational leadership, because this is what I'm this is the space that I'm in. Because I'm in that space, I just really like wow. This and here's the cool thing about it. When I was getting my classes, right? I'm getting my master's in education. Every topic that I was actually being taught, or every class, I would go to work and that same issue was what was going on. So if I was talking about school improvement plans, that was my class for the semester. Guess what? We were in the time frame when we were doing school improvement plans. So not only did I have the educational logistics of school improvement plans, but I was actually working it at the time. So that was just like a God moment, because he every class it was always the same thing. So because that was my passion, and because I know that this was where I was supposed to be, everything just kind of fell into place. I stayed focused. I had God gave me a word, untriggered. So I would post that everywhere I could, untriggered, because I'm not going to be untriggered. I am going to be focused. So I remained focused, and he would tell me, okay, take all of this in. So when something came up, most people would think of it as a chore. Or why do I have to do this? This is not within my, this isn't my job description. Or how people do that. I wouldn't think of it like that. Another adventure, another piece of education. And guess what? If I lose this job, they cannot take that education from me. So I will
mm,
always have that knowledge. So I was open to learning any and everything. And I stayed in what I wanted to do because I knew this was the plan, for my life. Like I said, God gave me a couple of detours because I never thought about being a master's in education, because like I said, I had my little thing over here where I thought I was going to be up
mm,
speaking. And he revealed to me that the goal that I had to affect everybody,
mhm.
I could do it right here. And I was like, you know what, God, you got jokes, because I never thought about that, but I get it. Okay, let's roll with it. So as long as you're open and you know what your passion is, and you, first and foremost, that relationship, you've got to have a relationship with the Father. For me, that was my guiding compass on what I should do, because I would always have the ear to hear. So I would always know, okay, this is where this is going. So I need to be vigilant. I need to be careful.
So since
Okay.
you're there, so since you mentioned that, and because we're going to dig into your topic too. So since you
Okay.
mentioned that, let's just hit this not bump in the road, but let's just take a pause and get on the side of the road on our journey and pull out the camera and take a picture of a couple of scenes. So
Okay.
since you drove by the God scene just now, how important, let's just talk about that for a few minutes, because there are professionals who are religious, who believe in Jesus, who are Christian in the workplace. Let's just talk about that. Can you just speak for a few minutes on how important you feel that it is for a professional to be grounded in their faith, and while they're at work, and to have a strong, connection with their faith and their belief system, and how that intertwines with them as a professional? Because see, and Renita, I ran into a point in my military career. I was going back and forth. Well, I'm not going to bring my religion to work. Well, I'm going to separate work from faith. Well, this is not professional. Well, and then it got to the point where, you know what? Well, just praise the Lord. Calvin is a spiritual being. I'm a physical being. You know what I'm saying? I am who I am, and I'm gonna bring that to work. And if people don't like it, well, they can kick rocks, as we say, with open shoes.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
got to the point where I was like that. So, in your opinion, can you share with us how important do you think it is for a professional to connect with their faith, and the workplace, connect their faith with the workplace? And what has that done for you?
I think it is important because your faith is who you are. Okay. If you're really rooted and grounded in your faith, whatever the faith may be,
Mhm.
that is who you are. And that's where how you present yourself. Okay. I'm
Yes.
hearing a little echo. And that's how you present yourself.
Mhm.
So how am I going to show up every day? And that is rooted in my faith, because if I don't have a strong connection with Christ, knowing who Christ is and knowing how he navigated through the space that he had, even in the 3 years of his life, I mean, 30, sorry, 30. But, you know, knowing how he navigated through that, that is my example. So whenever I'm interacting with anybody, I use that. As far as the gifts that I have, I don't think I could do the job that I have if I didn't utilize the gifts that I have. I have a gift of discernment, and being a social worker, you know, recognizing that there are people that have a need.
Mhm.
I now have the skill to physically see, because I have those tools. But then I also have that spiritual tool where God shows me, okay, this person, I can see they have a need, but he's going to give me a little bit more information about that need. So then I can combine the two, and I can be the social worker that everybody comes to the office. I've had staff members come into my office, and
Mhm.
just sit and talk. And I've had to help them, because I'm not only for the children, I was for the community. The community was the school, it was the principal, it was the teachers, it was the custodian, whoever came to me.
Mhm.
My job was to serve. Um, do I talk about Christ? Only if I have that door. I have students who will say something about it, and I don't all of a sudden pull out the Bible and say, "Oh, guess what?" That's not what I do. I allow them to
Right.
express how they feel, and I don't put any judgment on it. And
Mhm.
I help guide them to make the decision, whatever they are, whatever the decision may be. When it comes to the adults, the adults will come to me and let me know if they're a believer or not.
Mhm.
That's a better opportunity for me, because then when I can go into my secret place, I can close my door and I can have a staff member who is in need, and I can sit there and I can ask them, "Can I pray for you?" And I will do that, short and simple, and we move on. because I know that they're a believer. Now, will I just go out in the hallways and no, I'm not going to do that. My character will speak for myself for who I am. And that's what I've always worked on doing, is making sure that my character, how I walk, how I enter into the space that I have every day that God has blessed me, how do I walk into it and how do I represent him? And some days it's a struggle. I can tell you that some days it is a struggle, but on the for the most part, I can it's a love, it's a passion. And because I walk with Christ on a regular basis, he guides me and he tells me what I need to do, where I need to do it, when I need to keep silent, when I need to voice my opinion, when I need to address something. It also, because I have that faith and because I have that relationship, sometimes when you see things, it's not for you to say anything, but it's for you to pray about it. That one I had to learn. So, in a nutshell, my faith, or having faith, I think is very essential, because especially working in the school system, it keeps us grounded, and you find like-minded people, and we're able to connect, and we're able to share, and we're able to do things. I mean, some buildings that I've been in, I've been a part of morning prayer circles. Every morning,
Right.
time we get together, we pray, so it's out there, and it just lets you know that, you have someone else to go to that
Mhm.
can help bombard heaven on behalf of the community, the children, and the staff. And that's such a how do I want to put it? It's such a welcoming feeling, to be able to do that. Because I can tell you now, there are so many things that are going on in our community, that, especially even with with COVID going on. Trauma is like, it's
It's
like
happening. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
happening.
It's
And
happening on many different levels that we don't even
yes,
see.
yes. And how it affects people is very different. So to be able to take my faith in and to be an example in my walk and how I present myself every day, I don't take it lightly, because I know I'm
So,
being watched. Go
so
ahead.
let me ask you this, and I want to say this because people who are watching this, you may be Buddhist, you may be Muslim, Sikh, you may be whatever faith, but still, as a professional, it is paramount that you do have a grounding in whatever your belief system is as a professional. And I think that's super important for people to understand. If you, whatever your faith is, have a grounding in it, and because it's going to help you be more of a professional and help you do whatever it is that you do
Right.
better. And go ahead.
No, I was
Okay.
just going to say, because having that grounding, you have your ethics. You have that, there's an ethical piece to being, to having a strong faith.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
when you walk into a space and people know who you are or whose you are, they know your boundaries, and
Right.
they may try to push them, but they know that they can't go too far, because this person has integrity, this person has a character that is not going to allow certain things. I can say that right now, that in my space, people know my character, people know where I stand and what I'm about. And the first thing, it is serving. So I'm going to work on making you look good, because if you look good, everybody else that's connected to you look good. And
You
my
know
heavenly
what? Now
Father
that
looks
right
good.
there. Now see, that's a mouthful right there. And I'm gonna start because see, we can go into a. We're gonna have to bring you back then to talk about faith and professionalism. That's a whole nother section
That's
right
a
there.
whole nother
Right.
thing.
That's a
Yes.
whole nother, as they say, as some people will say when they preach and they'll bring up a topic and say that's a whole nother sermon. But that's a whole
Yes.
nother session, right?
Yes.
To talk about
Yes.
that. Let me start because I want to get into this topic with the time we have. Learning psychology and trauma. And actually, before I get into that, let me ask you this. I have to ask you this.
Okay.
And you're going to probably laugh because that can be a whole other session too. What are some skills that you have amassed as a social worker, being in the school system, being around people, situations? What are some skills that you have amassed that you feel not only children should know, but that adults should have? What are some basic skills or
Oh
some
gosh.
basic, skills or attributes or characteristics that you've ran into through training? Being a social worker now, I'm your master's in education, and then your experience. You're also a chaplain, but all of those things. What are some things you can bring to the table? If you say, hey, look, this is Calvin. These are about 5 things as a social worker. These are 5 nuggets that I can give to adults that an adult can apply, and it doesn't even have to be 5. Let's say 3. Let's not work you too hard. Let's say
Okay.
let's say
Okay.
3,
You
because
know,
you
it just
sitting
got
there,
off
you got that look. I see you. You over here like, okay, now he asking me, but no, let's go with, let's use 3. What are 3
okay.
nuggets you can give adults that they can apply anywhere, workplace, whatever workplace they're at home, in the workplace, in the community.
I think one of the nuggets, the biggest nugget that I have learned is, and I mentioned it a little earlier, everyone has a story,
Mm.
and we need to learn to listen. And listening doesn't only include your ears, but it also includes your eyes. You have to listen. You have to watch a person and see where they're at. Because if you don't, how you approach them can really cause a problem. Okay. So the first thing I would say is we as people need to learn how to listen to each other, um, and not react. Please don't react. I think a lot of people think reacting is like responding, and it's not. Okay. Reacting is knee jerk, responding is thoughtful. Okay. Before you say something or before you get ready to make a statement, when you step back, take a deep breath, think about it, then open your mouth. That's when you are responding because you're now considering what you have taken in, the person that's saying it to you, how they're responding, because you have to listen to their tone. I mean, it's like this big ball, but on the most part, it's learn how to respond instead of reacting. Okay. I think that would be the second one. The third one is, oh gosh, something that everyone could use on a daily basis. Now, is this to as we interact with each other, or is it just on a personal note
It
for
could be
themselves?
community, it could be individual, it could be family, community, or professional.
Recognize your weaknesses, your strengths, and really accept who you are as who you are. Okay. When you recognize what your limits are, it it frees you. You don't have to do everything just because somebody asked you to. You don't have
Mm.
to, um, there is, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, you know what, right now, I'm not able to do this.
Wow. Yes.
So being able to recognize what your limits are, I think is paramount because I think that's where people get stressed out. That's where people get so overwhelmed.
Mm.
And now we have all of these mental anguishes that we're going through, the mental, stresses. Then you start breaking out in hives. I will break out in hives when I'm stressed, but I recognize,
Right.
you know, I recognize as soon as I see, and you know what? It's only one. I only get one hive, and I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. So when I get that hive, I know what I need to do. I need to check myself in. I need to step back. I need to take that breather. I need to really analyze, okay, what's going on that's causing me this, and then adjust. So I guess number 4 would be learning how to adjust, learning how to be malleable. We don't always have to stay in one vein. Um, and I'm going to stop there because I could probably keep
Awesome.
going.
Well, then
Yeah.
let's stop there. Let's stop there. And what I'm going to do let's go over these. Let's go over
Okay.
these, and then I'm gonna go right into the psychology. So I asked you, and for people that are watching, the question I asked Renita was, look, what are some things she's learned through and from her social work experience and background that everybody could use? And she said the first one was learning how to listen, because everybody has a story. She said, number two, we need to learn the difference between reacting and responding. She said, number three, we need to recognize our weaknesses and strengths and accept our limits. I thought that was super powerful, because in the professional environment, when everything is fast paced in a results based environment, people will become cutthroat. They will become insecure because they're not comfortable with who they are, where they are, or their educational background. But number four, you said we need to learn how to adjust and be flexible. And Renita, I think that's a powerful one too. I remember we called it the platoon sergeant motto. They used to say be flexible, because you can have one thing planned in the military, one thing can be planned, and in 10 minutes you're doing something totally different. So I think that is
Exactly.
absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for the viewers that are watching. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for tuning in. We definitely appreciate you. So Renita, let's talk about and Zernin. I forgot. Thank you, because she's an educator. Zernin, Miss Evans. Yes, thank you for tuning in. I forgot you were an educator. I interviewed you on my blog show. She's been an educator, Renita, for 40 years, I
Oh
believe.
wow.
She's
Oh
written a
wow. My
series of
hat's
books.
off to you, Miss Zernin. I
Oh,
applaud you. I
thank
am
you.
so honored to for you to be watching me. I'm speechless.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh. And yes, Zernin, she is so awesome. And she wrote some books. And so it's awesome. Anyway, Zernin is awesome. I may have to just get her on the show to talk. But let's get into this learning psychology. So what exactly, which is the first question I'm going to ask you. So what exactly, Renita, is learning psychology? Because I know we were talking about trauma. This is a presentation that you had done before. So can we talk about
Mhm.
learning psychology? Because you were talking to me about how trauma affects how individuals learn. And I know that
Right.
can directly be applied to the African American, school system, as I call it, or African American students, Hispanic students, adults, just students, whether they're children or adults. But can you tell me, what is learning psychology? What do you mean by that when we say learning
Um, the
psychology?
learning psychology. When I did this, it is in to put it in a nutshell. It's um, it's a term to describe the learning process. Okay.
Mhm.
um what how does someone learn? um so learning process, I mean, learning psychology is just like psychology, the process on how people do things, the stages of development. Psychology talks about just the study, okay, the study of the mind. So with learning psychology, how does the mind um process learning? Okay, that's going to be it right there. Learning psychology is how does the mind process learning? Okay, learning in itself is a whole nother definition. How we take in information, how we assimilate it, how we act upon it. So the psychology part of it is how do those two meet together?
Mhm.
Okay, what is the process of that? What is the process of that learning? So that's what learning psychology means. Okay, like I said, it's just it's a I saw this term and I found it interesting, and then when I started looking it up, I'm like, okay, so these are some of the components, because yeah, the psychology of learning. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go here and going from there. So my next question is, what are the types of learning? Because I know you're going somewhere with this. Because when we talk about trauma, it usually happens in underprivileged areas a lot more
Mhm.
than others, and in areas of poverty. But what are the types of learning?
Okay, so types of learning, there's a couple of them. There's the when you think about the psychology field or the mental health field, there are types of learning. There's like three types of learning. Okay, there's classical conditioning, there's operant conditioning, and then there is learning through observation. So those are three ways that you learn. This is how you take in information. A child will watch someone, I always get a kick out of looking at playing with newborn babies, because if you stick your tongue out at them, you know, and you keep doing it, all of a sudden they'll start doing it. So they're learning through observation, and it's just so cool to watch them imitate you. The other one, I'm sorry, I had to write notes. Operant conditioning. Um, this is like reinforcement and punishment. So you touch a hot stove, you get burned. You know what? Don't touch the hot stove. Okay, stay away from the stove. So that's kind of like in a nutshell what that means. Or when it comes to the school, it's students have reward systems. Okay, they want teachers, the staff or the adults or the school system wants to help a child uh, change a behavior.
Hmm.
I particularly don't care for this one too much because it reminds me of Pavlov's dogs, and everybody always uses food.
You,
Okay. There are other ways to reward a child without feeding them. Okay. Of course, all the babies want Takis, right? So they want Takis. So now you're going around putting all of this hot stuff in these babies' insides, and they're growing up with ulcers. Okay, having stomach aches because you gave them Takis because you wanted them to sit in a classroom and be quiet for 5 minutes. No, no, there are other ways, but that's kind of operant conditioning. Okay. The other one is, I said observation. The classical condition, that's association. Okay, so this one is where you this is kind of more so like Pavlov's dogs also. Okay, I kind of put both of those, operant and classical, in the same boat. You if
what was
you
that first one again?
Okay, there's classical conditioning,
Classical conditioning,
operant conditioning,
operant conditioning,
and then there's learning through observation.
and learning through observation. So I just wanted
Okay.
people to catch those. I'm not going to put those
Okay.
on the screen because I have some other questions, but I wanted people to catch
Okay.
those because
Yeah.
certain things, if
Yeah.
somebody watches this, I'm not going to put it on the screen because you need to play the video back and
Okay.
so they can digest it.
Right.
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 So this is learning, but go ahead. I'm
Okay.
listening.
So classical conditioning is kind of natural consequences also. Okay. So let's say you're sitting and you're leaning back in a chair. Don't lean back in the chair. Don't lean back in the chair. You need to put your chair back up. Please put your chair back up. And what happens if you lean back in the chair? Eventually, you're going to do what? Slide back, and you're going to hit your head, or you're going to fall. Students will laugh at you or whatever, and that's an embarrassing moment. So the fact that that natural consequence occurred, you might not do it again. Okay. So, like I said, classical conditioning and operant conditioning, they kind of go hand in hand. They kind of weave in and out. But classical conditioning is more identified with Pavlov, and operant conditioning is more identified with, I think it's B.F. Skinner, but that's another psychologist. Okay.
Okay.
So they're psychology pioneers. And so these were the terms that they coined. Yeah.
Awesome. So for people that are watching and for viewers also, we're talking about the psychology of learning and its connection with trauma or how trauma affects learning. But the goal is targeted towards children, not necessarily
Correct.
adults. So I wanted to let people who are watching this know that. So that being the case, because we know trauma sometimes occurs, how
Yes.
do you define poverty? Because we know trauma, a lot of trauma occurs in impoverished areas. We know that. Not that it doesn't occur anywhere, but how do you define poverty?
Poverty. Okay, poverty. I have two. Um, According to there was this. Let me see. What was her name? There was this Ruby K. Payne. She wrote this book about poverty. I think it was the framework of understanding poverty. That's what it was. Before I get there, there's other types of learning, and it's called the VARK system, VARK, which is visual, auditory, reading,
Mhm.
and kinesthetic. I always spell that wrong, say that word wrong. Kinesthetic. Okay, kinetic or kinesthetic. So VAR, reading and writing, K, kinesthetic. Okay. So back to poverty. So poverty, Ruby K. Payne, she wrote this book. Everybody thought it was the most wonderful thing in the world because she talked about poverty. Her definition is when an individual goes without resources. That's when you're impoverished. Okay. You're in poverty when you are without resources. I went to a seminar and in our district, and the speaker added more to it. Literally, he said, well, she didn't know what she was talking about because here is what it really is. It really is a mindset. And if you think about it, poverty is a mindset because you can have money, or you can be in a state of lack without the resources. But if you don't have the mindset to believe that where you are is not the end all,
Mm-hmm.
you don't move from that. So poverty will grab hold to your mind. And when it gets there, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get out. And when I look at our communities and when I, talk to some of our babies, um, I see that I can hear it in what they say. I can see it in how they do things. Ruby talks about some of the characteristics of someone who is impoverished. Um, they turn the TV up loud because they don't want to think, because quiet is something that they don't want because then they have to start thinking about where they are. So TVs are always loud in homes. Whenever people who are impoverished, you know, get a little extra, they go out and get things that they feel that everybody else has, so they should have. The
Mm-hmm.
mindset is to just get. The mindset isn't how to store and how to move away from poverty. That's where that mindset comes in. Um, so that's the definition for me. The definition is without resources, but it's also within the mind.
That mindset. It has
That
a it,
mindset, yes,
it has a root in the mindset that kind of manifests in an environment of a lack of resources. So now
you
we're
got
about to
it.
get into a little bit of the trauma. We may not be able to explore it all, but we're going to touch
Okay,
on the trauma because I know you want to talk about how trauma affects the way a child learns, right? So
okay, yeah,
and so for people that are watching this, that's kind of the framework. So now, the next question is, what are some behavioral responses to trauma that children experience? And again, the premise is for people that are watching is that trauma affects how children learn, how they
yeah,
perceive, which
it
which
really
which
does.
indelibly
Yeah,
can affect the type of adult they become and how they function in
exactly.
society. So, what are some behavioral responses to trauma that children can experience?
Um, some of the impairments just across all domains. Okay, students will become impaired. Um, if you're not eating, if you don't have enough to eat, when you come to school, instead of thinking about the subject, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about when the next meal is. Okay. Or, you're what can you do to get something to eat? That's why I really don't like when it comes to a reward system, how people will use food because it's not nutritious food. So now we're talking about food deserts, in the schoolhouse. And so those are some of the things, the way they function in school, their concentration, their self regulation, their frustration tolerance, their ability to interact with others. Their own self-worth or their self-concept of who they are, they begin to internalize some things. Those are some of the things that you see when someone is affected by trauma. um, and it can even go into some forms of PTSD if you really think about it, because then you've got triggers. You come to school and a teacher says, if they have a strong voice. I have a very pronounced, I guess, or strong voice, I've been told. So the fact that my voice projects, if I'm
Right.
talking
Right.
to someone, because I had this happen. I was talking to a parent and I said something in the tone that I'm talking now, and they immediately told me that they had an issue with how I spoke to them because to them it sounded like I was yelling. And so then I had to go into explaining I'm, apologizing and, trying to talk a little softer or explaining to
Right.
her how I do things. So now we are on the even plane because now we both know what the triggers are or how we respond. So I know how to talk to her to get her to feel safe. Okay. So it does. It rolls into PTSD. It really does. There are our babies they've seen some things.
Right. And that sounds like, and that's an important skill because you said some, I'm thinking neuro linguistics when you said that, because, and I laughed when you said that because I know I've told you stories on the phone in conversations, but I've had some of those experiences where you can talk to someone just like we're talking here,
Mhm.
or like I'm talking right now, and that person will perceive and leave the conversation.
Yes.
Your perception is we had a well rounded conversation and discussion. Their perception is you yelled at me, you were belligerent. And so I've come to find out these things were rooted in the psychology of how people operate, because some people just have a different perception of anybody that's an authority figure, or anyone that's
Yes.
communicating from
Yes.
an authoritative exousia, stance. Some people just have a personal issue with that because of how
Yeah.
they were raised. And so I'm sitting here talking to them. And so their perception is, oh my gosh, you're yelling at me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so, and I think it's important
Yeah.
what you said to be, because I'm still learning how to do that, Renita,
Yeah.
to
And you
adjust.
know what?
It's not about Calvin. What do I want? It's about the individual. It's
Right.
not about how I feel. My feelings they go away. It's about the relationship with the person I'm with right now. What do I want to communicate? Am I doing it effectively? How do they receive it? And the message, the medium, the receiver. You know the deal. But
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? So am I. I am still, because I can, I'm, because there's so many levels to it. How I speak at home and how I speak in the marketplace are two
mhm,
different ways. I,
right,
I personally, I feel that I become more relaxed when I'm at home. So I say things not really thinking because in my mind, my family knows me. So I may say something and not realize the effect because, well, you know me, you've lived with me. But so I become a little relaxed. But when I'm at work, I'm more vigilant. I'm
mhm,
more astute. I'm more, um, attuned to
perceptive.
who I am, what my surroundings are. And, I still falter in that same thing, um, and sometimes I have to catch myself. But we're
Right.
all a work in progress. We're all a work in
We're
progress.
all whips.
I promise you.
That's
Yeah.
the term they use in manufacturing, whip, work in progress. So
Yes.
we're all whip
Yes.
at some level. And you said, what we asked, what are some behavioral responses? You mentioned that impairment is a behavioral responses because people will show, they will show not a lack of interest, but you said impairment can be seen across all domains where
Yes.
people will falter in their progress no matter what
Mhm.
domain it's in. So
Right.
now for the next question, what are some of the impacts of trauma? The
Oh wow.
impact of trauma.
Some of the
And
impact.
again, with the framework for children, because I know um, DCFS. I know you work with DCFS, right? I know. So you've been
Yeah.
in there.
I've
So
I've been I've been in the battlefield. Yeah. Yeah,
you
I
know,
have.
yes, and
Um
not just for the Lord. You've been on the battlefield in the
yes.
inner
Yes.
cities. You with families,
Yes.
Chicago land area.
Yes.
You're there. So,
Yeah.
what are some of these impacts of trauma? Whether
Um
it's individually, for the family, for the community, generationally.
you've got, well, again, that mindset is there. Um the level of trust is diminished.
Mm,
There is that knowing about safety. Am I safe? That's a big one. When children have trauma, they look for consistency. They need to feel safe. So in the time that they are in our care, which is I think 5.5 hours, um, we need to let them know by whatever means necessary that they are safe, that they are being cared for, and that it's okay to be in this space. Um, so the safety portion is very important. Other effects are just how they relate to others. Um, they have so many triggers. Again, the PTSD, it's there. I remember talking to someone and I told them, I said, if I did a trauma assessment right now in our building, I would say that I would probably get about 80% of people, of children. And now I can add the staff because of what we've gone through in the last year and a half that have some form of trauma. If you've seen a car accident, that's trauma. People react to it differently. Some people, I mean, some of the effects, dreams, night terrors, okay? Some of the effects, our babies can start wetting the bed, okay? Some of the effects, how they eat, what they eat, you know, some of the effects. Sometimes our babies can be selective mutes, and that's an extreme. But just becoming introverted, not really saying anything, um, being very nervous, anxiety. These are some of the effects of trauma. And it's all about the triggers. It's all about feeling safe or not feeling safe. And this is what occurs. Um, my heart goes out to, some of our babies. I remember I have a story when I worked at a facility for, children who were the ward of the state. And I remember this one story, and it stuck with me forever. This one baby, they were at that facility as a ward of the state, but this was the reason why. They witnessed an adult throw their sibling up against the wall in order to keep that sibling from crying, to stop that sibling from crying. They did it so many times that the child died. Guess who had to clean up? That baby. And to this day, I still think about this child. But now this child is an adult. That trauma, can you imagine how that person is actually navigating in the space we call, the earth?
Life, yeah.
Yeah. How are they navigating themselves? Their ability to trust, their ability to, really just plan for themselves, their own self-esteem, their own ability to, just love themselves and trust others.
Right. And these are, and see, and this is why we need people. I mean, this is also because we need professionals who have the insight into these situations, who can transfer the passion and the need to people who may not be directly there, but they can pick it up and take it with them. And Renita, that leads me to think that what you just said leads me to my last question for you,
Okay.
which is as a layperson, as people, and that word layperson cannot just mean, oh, somebody that's, not the pastor, but a layperson means also, I just want to put that in a professional context for someone who may be watching. I'm not a social worker. So for me, I'm a layperson to the social worker field, to that professional field. I'm a layperson. If I'm not an educator, I may be if you're watching this and you're not an educator, you are a layperson when it concerns the educational domain. Like Renita, you have taught school, you've taught the school age, teenagers, high school. I've dealt with teenagers for a small stint of time, but I've taught college, so I'm a layperson concerning what you're saying. So as a layperson, what can we do to assist our children when they experience trauma. And I want to say these are school age children and adolescents that you're talking about primarily.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
awesome. So,
Correct.
as a
Yes.
layperson, what can we do to assist our children when they experience trauma? And this is for the clergy. This is for the person who is not in the field, the teacher who may not be the social worker. You know what I'm saying? The clergyman who may not understand, the chaplain, just the parents. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? The
Yeah.
bystander, the
Um,
volunteer.
I think one of the things that you have to do is when a child is going through trauma and you happen to and you are in that space of knowing it, you have to know your limitations. Like I said before, one of the big nuggets, knowing what your limitations are, because sometimes what you may encounter, you may not be ready to. So you need to know when to tap out.
I like
Okay.
that. Yes.
Um, but first and foremost, even even once you get there, before you get there has to be a relationship built. There has to be some communication. Um, if we don't learn how to communicate, then that's where the problem starts. Understanding how you communicate to a certain individual will open doors.
And so,
Calvin, if you were sensitive, a perfect example. I have to use my own children. When my my son was he was an infant, and my children are 9 years apart. So my daughter, she was upstairs somewhere, and I needed her to come downstairs. So she was about maybe like 9, 10, and I was carrying my son. And so I was calling her name. And as I was calling her name, my son kept crying. And I realized that me projecting my voice was causing him anguish. So then I had to lightly, in order to keep him quiet, I had to learn how to call for my daughter in a manner that would not disrupt his psyche. Okay. So yelling in my house is not something that we do. Okay. Even to this day, we don't really yell. We don't even argue in this house. My husband won't argue with me, which really frustrates me because sometimes he want a good fight, but he won't give me one. So I just learned, we just don't do that. But
right.
so it's learning how to really effectively communicate. Okay. When you can effectively communicate, then you can reach that child. So as a layperson, learning to listen. I'm going to go right back to the 5 or the 4, being able to listen to them, being able to communicate and knowing your limits. When you know your limits, you can then best help that child. All they want is consistency. All they want is to feel safe. So if you are that person that will be able to cause them to feel safe, you're doing real good, because that means that then they'll be coming to school and they have a reason to come.
Right.
Okay. They have a reason to come, because when they leave those doors, there's chaos. So if whatever that chaos may be, but there's some chaos out there and they don't feel safe. So when they come into that building, they need to know that this is a safe place.
Right.
And that means we need to give them consistency.
Give them consistency.
Yeah.
Give them consistency,
Give
with
them
our children.
Yeah.
I think this is so powerful. And I think the classes like this or sessions like this help people by giving them a little insight. I think, having discussions like this, it gives people insight and gives them a little skill set they can put in their little skill set bag on their little satchel and throw it around their little invisible satchel and strap it on when they leave the house and say, okay, I know a little bit about that. Hold up, somewhere I had a class about that. Someone told me about this situation. And it's powerful, right? And so we need this from professionals such as yourself. I think this is awesome. And also, Renita, I think professional clergymen such as chaplains and pastors I think this is a huge benefit to individuals like that, but not just them,
Hmm.
teachers, people, anybody that works with children,
Hmm.
but more so because a lot of clergy or professional clergy, they go to school, get training, and they think that's all the training that they need. They don't get any continuing education
Hmm.
or continuing professional education. And so little sessions, if it's just an hour session or something like this or a class, can help them get better insight so that they can help people and not just
Exactly.
know how to help people. I
Right.
think you
Right.
said it. Know when I need to. I used to do jujitsu, so I like what you said. Tap out when somebody got me and they balled me up. Instead of me sitting there with pride, not tapping out while they're tearing my shoulder cuff and almost ripping my limb. No, I tap out. You got it. You got me. Let's start over again. Tap out.
Yeah.
Know when
Yeah.
to tap out when you
Yeah.
learn the skills.
Yeah.
So what are some last thoughts? It's we're at
Um,
the end here. It's been an hour, and what are some last thoughts that you
it's
want to
over
share?
already. Okay. Some other things that I would suggest is just provide the support. Be that support for our babies. Understand that they are human beings. Being able to recognize that they're not, because they're acting out is not really about you. Okay. it's
Right.
it, it's not it's not about you. This is not a moment where you have to recognize that this is about you. So your question should be, well, why are they doing that? And if you can find that answer, then you can also learn to help them turn it around. But provide them with the support, because that's where they need it. These are human beings. They have a story.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't tell, if we don't learn
Right.
their story, we can't be effective when we help them. All right.
If we
um
don't learn the
so
story, we cannot be effective when we help
yep.
them.
Yep. and,
Powerful.
and
We don't learn
understand
the
their
story.
uniqueness. Understand that they're unique beings all in themselves. Every child is not the same. It 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 saddens me when I see teachers or educators um lump children in these little categories.
Mm.
I had a one teacher. There was a fight in our building, and all of a sudden, she just said, "They're just animals." I lost it. I I turned and I looked at her, and I'm like, "What do you mean that they're animals?" I mean, I lit into her, and I did it so quickly that I didn't realize, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Um, but you know, but they're not animals.
Right, right. And we need to be cognizant of that though too, because
Yes,
that has
the
ethnic
words you
connotations
say.
that go with that. Yeah.
Yes, the words you say, the words that you
Mhm.
use to describe a child, understand that our definition and how they receive that definition are
Yes,
two different things.
yes, yes, yes.
Because you can say that that is, that's just not necessary. They took that as meaning that I'm worthless, that I can't do anything. They go through this whole big narrative. So we have to be really careful with the words that we use around our babies that have trauma, because we don't, especially if we don't know their story. And
Right.
sometimes we never will.
And
Unfortunately, as a social worker, I get to know those stories, and I can't
right.
tell you what those stories are sometimes.
Right, right, right. And different people, we call them in the military positions of trust. It's almost
Yeah.
like, when you're in the military, you're that person in a position of trust. If you're an instructor, you're that leader. And as an instructor in the military, students went through things. I had a student and they were failing. Watch this. And this is how important it is when dealing with children. And this individual was grown. They were I think they were 19. But the individual had failed a test. And so what happened is they came from another part of the school. I mean, of the school, they came from another area of study, and then they came to us. Well, guess
Hmm.
what, Renita? The teacher who had them knew that they had some personal issues, and instead of communicating and say, okay, Mr. Ward, you're getting a student. These are some things I want to share with you. Or just hey, or not even if you wanted to share specifics, at least say, hey, Mr. Ward, they're having some trouble. You may want to talk to them and find out what it is if you feel it's not something you should share. But all of a sudden, students having an issue. And then it took me to ask them and say, well, what is going on? And then you dig and find out it was something you could have dealt with and helped them to get over from the beginning.
Correct.
Why not other
Correct.
professionals had a love and a care for the student to say,
Yes.
well, let's have a
Yes.
care team as instructors and teachers over those. And I think you
Right.
used the word steward earlier when you were talking about this. Well, Renita, I thank you, so much for being here on today. People that are tuned in, I thank you for your
Thank you for
time.
having me.
See, you already said, oh, the time is over already. You said how quick this flows, and I do 2 hours sometimes, but the time flows quick. And I just
Yes,
want
it
to do
does.
a nice hour. Thank you so much for being on the show, talking about, the psychology of learning and trauma, or psychology learning and trauma. Gave us some powerful nuggets for people that are watching. Please tune back in. Again, thank you so much, and hopefully we can get you back to discuss some more topics.
Okay. And Calvin, I did send you my LinkedIn account.
Okay,
I did
awesome.
send it to you.
Okay, because I have a message here. If they type in Renita Davis, they should be able to find you. Did you send it to me on private chat, or you texted it to me?
I think I sent it in text.
Can you send it right here on private chat? If you can, I can just post it here. But if not, it doesn't make a difference. But at the bottom of the screen, they can look you up as Renita Davis and find you. They know what your face looks like from the show. I think they should be able to look you up and find
Yes.
you. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for participating, for being here. Hopefully we can have you back. I can have you back.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Have a great evening.
All right. Thank you. You do the same.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode of the professional series, the LinkedIn professional series with Calvin Ward. I just wanted to bring some professionals and some powerful information and share some of these awesome people that I know and I've been able to connect with down through the years, and just share some of that information with those I'm connected to. Thank you for tuning in today, talking about psychology of learning and trauma, and with social worker and educator Renita Davis, and she was sharing with us how trauma affects children and their learning, and the information and nuggets she shared with us in this program on today. This information can help you if you're an educator, a teacher. It helps you as a professional too if you're around children, around the school age or adolescents, and definitely your professional clergy, like someone who is a chaplain or someone who is a pastor or just works in that capacity. So again, thank you so much. Please tune in when we have these. I would love your comments. I would love to know how you enjoyed this session. In the future, these sessions may not be broadcast on Facebook. They may just be exclusive to LinkedIn because they're for professionals, right? So please tune in to LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn. Look up Calvin D. Ward. You know what I look like. Find my picture and connect with me on LinkedIn. And so please share this with somebody. And I am really hoping that you enjoyed this and got something out of it. And until next time.